Hello, this is a talk from Knaphill Baptist Church and I'm Hetty. I find it very fascinating that God is interested in us individual people. When you believe what is true in the Bible, you say that God created heavens and the earth. And we won't go into details here how that happened exactly, etc. But when I see how precise everything is in creation and how well shaped things are and how everything is made for a purpose, I see the hand of God in it. On the other hand, that great God is also interested in human beings, individual human beings. He's interested in you and me. And that struck me again when I read in my Bible study group passages from the book of Ruth in the Old Testament. Now, Ruth came from Moab, so she didn't come from Israel. She came from an area which used to be Israel's enemy, actually, in the past. But she gets married. She marries an Israeli man who had fled famine from his own land, from Bethlehem in Israel. He dies, and then she returns, or she joins her mother-in-law when she returns to Israel, although she is a foreigner. And it's amazing how Ruth expresses her faith in the God of Israel and how she wants to be with her mother-in-law and wants to help her and support her. And then there's this man, Boaz, who is a remote family member, but Ruth doesn't know that when she meets him. Boaz is a remote family member of her late husband. And Boaz is a wealthy man and he owns a lot of land, and he permits Ruth to help in harvesting and take things home for her mother-in-law and for herself. So she works for it, but he is very friendly and allows her to do that and to take home the extra things. So he's a very kind man. But he also says to Ruth, "May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." So Boaz is actually the instrument of God's kindness, because he says to Ruth, God has been so kind to you, and you have come to shelter under God's wings. But in fact, in practical terms, Ruth is sheltering under the wings of Boaz here. He's protecting her. He is the instrument by which God helps Ruth. And then at the end of the book of Ruth, Boaz and Ruth get married. It's a very romantic love story. And in the end, it turns out that Boaz and Ruth have a son, and the baby is actually the grandfather of the great King David. And much later, Jesus is born from the house of David. So when you look up one of the Gospels, the first one, Matthew, you see that Ruth was one of the ancestors of Jesus. The Moabitess, the refugee, the foreigner, Ruth, became part of God's people. She's mentioned and Boaz is mentioned, her husband. And that struck me that on the one hand, you see a very individual story of one person, Ruth, and one person, Boaz, and they become part of God's bigger plan. And they are mentioned in the New Testament, and they could have never imagined that they were still in the Bible, and we read about them in the 21st century. And for me, that's one of the great things in the Christian faith, that what you do on an individual basis has a purpose, and God can use it in his big plan of rescuing people. God wants to show his love, which he has for us. He wants us to show that to other people, and we become co-workers of God, so to speak, in this world. We can be peacemakers, we can bring love, we can proclaim the good message of Jesus Christ. God can use us in his big plan. So what I do as an individual has a purpose and can fit in in the big plan of God. And isn't that fantastic? Thank you.